In 324 BC, Alexander the Great faced the only enemy he could not outflank, outcharge, or outfight: his own army. At Opis, a river city on the Tigris, the men who had marched with him from Macedonia to the edge of India finally snapped. They shouted him down. They mocked him. They defied him in public. And for a moment, the empire Alexander had built over 11 years looked like it might crack from the inside. Alexander could have answered with steel. Instead, he chose words. What he said at Opis ended a mutiny without a battle. Context: conquest is easy. Ruling is hard. By 324 BC, the Persian king Darius III was long dead. The great battles, Granicus, Issus, Gaugamela, had shattered the Achaemenid Empire. Babylon, Susa, Persepolis, all had fallen under Alexander's control. But conquest is one thing. Rule is another. Alexander wasn't just trying to win. He was trying to hold. To hold an empire this vast, he began doing what Macedonian kings had never done before. He started governing like an emperor of Asia. He kept Persian administrators in place and promoted Persians as satraps and court officials. He even adopted parts of Persian royal dress. Macedonian veterans watched their king build an Asian empire, one that seemed to make Persians partners, not subjects. He expanded elite units with non-Macedonians, insisting that courage, not birthplace, made a man worthy to stand beside him. To Alexander, it was unity. To the old guard, it felt like replacement. Then came the shock at Susa, a mass marriage ceremony staged in public. His officers took Persian noblewomen, and Alexander himself married Statira, daughter of Darius. Politics written in bloodlines. At the same time, tens of thousands of Persian youths drilled with Macedonian spears and shields, learning Macedonian discipline step by step. The message was unmistakable. If the veterans would not share power, a new guard was being forged. By now, the army was worn raw. More than a decade of deserts, snow passes, sieges, and graves far from home. In India, when Alexander demanded one more march east, the soldiers had already refused and forced him to turn back. And the court itself was unstable. Hephaestion, Alexander's closest friend, had died not long before. The king grieved, the army simmered, and the whole empire watched for weakness. So when Alexander gathered the troops at Opis and announced that the older Macedonians would be discharged and sent home with honors and pay, it sounded like mercy on paper. But in the ranks it landed as a warning. We are being removed. Behind him stood Persian soldiers trained in Macedonian style, young, fresh, ready. The veterans erupted, shouting abuse and mocking him as the son of Ammon. This was not complaint, it was mutiny. Alexander reacted instantly. He ordered the arrest of the ringleaders. They were executed. Then he did something even more terrifying. He dismissed the entire Macedonian army from service. In effect, he told the men who had conquered the world at his side, "Fine. Leave. All of you." Silence fell. And in that silence, everyone understood what was at stake. An army without its king is dangerous. A king without his army is dead. And then Alexander spoke. What follows is reconstructed mainly from Arrian's account in the Anabasis of Alexander. Not a verbatim transcript, but the structure of the argument survives. Alexander began by forcing the army to remember who they had been. Not conquerors, not rich men, not legends. He invoked Philip II, his father. "You speak as though I have wronged you. Let us remember what you were and what you have become. Your fathers were poor and scattered, clothed in skins, dwelling in the mountains, defending themselves poorly against their neighbors. My father, Philip, found you weak. He brought you down into the plains. He clothed you. He drilled you. He made you masters over those who once threatened you. He united Macedonia. He secured Greece. He prepared the way for Asia." Then Alexander turned the blade toward himself. "When I took the kingdom, I inherited debt and war. And together we crossed the Hellespont. At the Granicus, we defeated the Persian satraps. At Issus we faced Darius himself, and he fled. At Gaugamela we broke his power completely. He piled up names like trophies: Egypt, Babylon, Susa, Persepolis. You took gold. You took land. You took status. You became known throughout the world. Then he reached the real accusation. After everything I gave you, you resent me? And now you rage because I admit Persians into our ranks? Because I seek to bind this empire together? I do not distinguish between Macedonian and Persian among the brave and loyal. All worthy men are my companions. Then came the final strike. If you wish to depart, go. Return to Macedonia. Tell them you abandoned your king among the nations he conquered for you. Tell them you left him defended only by foreigners. He didn't threaten them with death. He threatened them with shame. And for Macedonian veterans, men whose lives were built on honor, that was worse. After the speech, there was no shouting. Arian says the soldiers were stunned. To leave now would mean admitting fear, admitting ingratitude, admitting they had turned their backs on the man who led them to the edge of the world. So the mutiny collapsed. The Macedonians approached. They wept. They begged forgiveness. They asked to remain. Alexander relented. A great banquet followed. Macedonians and Persians seated together. Libations poured for unity. For a brief moment, it worked. But history does not pause for reconciliation. In June 323 BC, less than a year after Opis, Alexander died in Babylon. He was 32, and without him, the unity he tried to forge cracked immediately. His generals, the Diadochi, did not inherit an empire. They fought over a prize. They divided the territories. They raised armies. They made and broke alliances. And for decades, the world Alexander made was at war again. So, was it the greatest speech in history? We cannot know its exact wording, but we know its effect. At Opis, Alexander defeated rebellion without drawing a sword. For one decisive moment, in 324 BC, his voice was stronger than his army, and it worked, for a simple reason. In that army, honor was currency. A man could lose pay and survive, but disgrace followed him home. Alexander made their anger public, and then offered them the one thing soldiers fear most: a story where they were the cowards. At the banquet, the symbolism mattered as much as the food. Macedonians and Persians drank from the same cups. The king prayed for one empire, one loyalty. But once Alexander died, there was no voice powerful enough to hold the pieces together. His body hadn't even cooled before his commanders began bargaining. One took Egypt. One took Asia. One took Macedonia. And each claimed to be the true heir, not to Alexander's dream, but to his power. The wars of the Diadochi would rage for decades. Cities changed hands, alliances shattered, and the empire that had nearly broken at Opis finally broke for good. So maybe that's the answer. The greatest speech in history isn't the one that lasts forever. It's the one that, for a moment, changes what happens next.